All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that is actually the case. We have to check on Rumble. Monday Live, MSNBC labels itself legacy media. Vote Kari Lake in Arizona tomorrow. We will be covering both of those as the major topics. I have 9 others, though, here. We got to talk about Robert Reich, of course, the Dutch farmer protests, and much, much more. No worries, everybody. We've got a lot of news to cover. Might not go a full hour today. I did a live stream literally every single day last month. It was lucrative. It was fun. Certainly helps with the subscriber numbers. Apparently, people like this format better than the standalone. So I'm going to probably stay with it pretty much every day. We'll see what happens. Let's make sure that we're actually live, though. I need a more sophisticated setup. I need more technology. I don't have any. I can barely use a smartphone, so it's a real problem. Feed started yet? Only seeing the standby screen even after restarting, says Flariod on Rumble. Yes, we are live, actually. Believe it or not. David S. Let's protest until Sticks turns off slow mode. No more slow sticks. No more slow sticks. Yeah, the problem is if I turn slow mode off, number one, you have to deal with spammers. That's a big problem. Number two, people will be commenting so quickly I won't be able to actually get to all the super chats. So then people aren't getting their money's worth. They're paying to speak. It's sort of like the modern public square at large. Not a huge fan of it, but yeah, I mean, there's no other way to do it, really. Okay, just a second here. Let me make sure that everything's working. I believe we are in business. Number one news story of the day. This is something that I saw yesterday, and I love to see it. Oh, it is glorious. When I saw this, I laughed. I laughed much more than I will bother to tell. Ron DeSantis blocking of legacy media coverage is dangerous for democracy. Republicans are increasingly seeking sympathetic media at their events. That's bad for accountability. This is from none other than MSNBC. Yes, MSNBC is literally calling itself legacy media now. They're doing this because of Ron DeSantis tweeting about legacy media. I wonder where he got the idea from. It is definitely the decade of the clankers. Linguistics goes a long way. Oh my God, when I saw this, I almost shit my pants. I was so happy to see MSNBC label itself legacy media, which they are. I mean, they have been for a very long time. Legacy media is effectively TV and paper generation media and radio to an extent, a little bit less. That can be more edgy. And the idea is legacy media is effectively a stand-in term for old wave media sources, again, televised, newsprint, etc. They don't tell the truth. They don't have any journalistic standards. At this point, they're just politically partisan in most cases. And yeah, it's good when they're banned from DeSantis events. It's good when Trump bans them from events. MSNBC should not be allowed anywhere near any political events. Other people that are more analytically independent should be the only ones covering these events. The fact is that people will tune in to watch them. Why do you need MSNBC to cover it? Why do you need CNN? Fire down below. Did you hear Fox News has banned Trump from their network? Do you think this will have any impact on him winning in 24? It'll have a very positive impact. By the way, I was right about Fox. We will be covering that as well. You've got what was it? Yeah, it was about due process and red flag laws with Trey Gowdy, of all people. Fucking Trey Gowdy. Oh boy, this is going to be a fun one. Corto Maltese, slow down there, Sticks. You're making Tim jealous with this upload and stream schedule. I will stream every fucking day. Nobody can stop me. So yes, MSNBC has correctly labeled itself legacy media. I don't know where they got the idea that using this particular linguistic kill shot in this title was a good idea. Whoever the staffer was that gave them the idea, and whoever it was that decided to, it was Zishan Aleem, an opinion columnist with MSNBC that wrote the piece. Zishan, did you get this idea from somebody else? To use the term legacy media? I don't think that it does you any justice. You're effectively just popularizing a term that stands for propaganda. Calling it dangerous for democracy is hilarious. I find this is the pinnacle of humor. This is like peak Styx Hexenhammer memeing right now. This is Clankdom 101. You're using the term that has been given to you by people who fucking hate you, and you're attempting, I guess, to use it to describe yourself. Oh, wow. Very, very wise of you. MS, little dude can't handle the success. Poor Timmy. Yes, little Timmy. Little Timmy is very sad. His propagandists have self-labeled themselves for some reason. I'm not sure exactly how this happened, but it's funny anyway. Buddy Mac 13. Sticks, get it fixed. Talking about Mockingbird Media. Don't worry. I mean, I go live every day, so you'll get your actual news. There are other channels that you can go to for actual analysis. You're not going to get it from MSNBC, so I want to dwell on this for a moment, though. Just think of the clusterfuck in the minds of the people that actually greenlighted this article. I know it's an opinion piece, so it's not MSNBC's editorial team or something. Somebody at MSNBC was stupid enough to actually greenlight an article, the title of which invokes the concept of them being legacy media. It's dangerous for democracy if the legacy media is not allowed to go and cover your rallies. Oh my God, fucking Jesus Christ. The Liberty Bowl. Greetings, broadcaster of the light. I'll be hopefully white-pilling some black-pilled ANCAPs on my show next week. I'd be honored if you'd grace me with a view. Explain objectivism versus occultism, please. Well, objectivism is purely secular and more socio-political. Occultism is a search for truth in the spiritual sense generally. It overlaps with social and economic issues to a great extent, actually, I've found. It's always good to white pill people. By the way, I was on Liberty Lockdown. I will be sharing that link out later after this live stream. That's a little bit of white pilling for people as well. It was definitely a chucklehead show as opposed to a dour hour, so to speak. Ron DeSantis blocks the legacy media. Oh my goodness. By the way, this is also an AstroTurf. It's an attempt to make Ron DeSantis look like an enemy of the evil legacy media. I think you're thinking of Trump, the one that can't even go on fucking Fox News at this point. We'll be talking about that. Poo-poo pee-pee, occultism is the search for truth. No, it's the search for Satan. Well, there is no Satan, and that's the truth. You don't even understand what Lucifer means if you translate to the Greek. Free Alex Jones, says TPL. Yeah, I agree. He's being, basically it's, what's it called? Lawfare, I think, when they do this shit. Basically, a bunch of people just want his money. Aaron C., I know you say you don't care about this Taiwan visit, but I don't understand how you aren't worried about World War III essentially breaking out. Why would World War III break out? Even if the Chinese decide to shoot down Nancy Pelosi over Taipei, it's not going to cause a world war. People in the United States, half of them would be cheering. We'd be celebrating. I wouldn't give a shit if Nancy Pelosi gets hit by the Chi-Coms. It would cause some political problems, but it wouldn't cause any problem for me. Who gives a shit? So yes, MSNBC has correctly labeled itself legacy media. I wanted to get that out first because it's... I can't even look at the title without laughing. Oh my God. Now we've got, unfortunately, some less happy news here. Arizona governor Republican primary. This is over on RCP. So again, this is a polling aggregate. Let's go through the polls over the last months. We'll start with January of this year. You've got OHPI, Trafalgar, Signal, Rasmussen actually weighed in, and then you have Emerson. Let's find the outlier. The first poll has Lake ahead by +4. Then by +7, then by +11, then by +2, then by +12, then by +5, then by +11 again, then by +9 and +9, Trafalgar and Rasmussen, then by +18. I think that might be an outlier, by the way. You have one fully recent poll, and that actually terminates on the last day of June. by Emerson, showing her opponent, Robson, the Pence endorsee, ahead by a point. Why do I get the impression, and I may just be a conspiracy theorist, Maricopa County aside, why do I get the feeling that there's an attempt to astroturf the idea of velocity towards Robson at the last minute in this race to justify the possible fortification of this race against Kari Lake? You'll remember in the Arizona gubernatorial challenge here, you have Kari Lake, who has been endorsed by Trump. She's been ahead by near or above double digits for literally months. There's been no velocity in the direction of her opponent. Her opponent was endorsed a few weeks ago by Mike Pence. Now, none of the other polls in that period, Signal plus 11 for Lake, Trafalgar plus 9 for Lake, Rasmussen plus 9, and then OHPI plus 18, actually. Again, that's probably an outlet. It's on the upper end. None of these have shown any velocity in the direction of Robson, who is the Pence-endorsed opponent, the non-MAGA candidate, the neocon in the race. All of a sudden, you have the first poll of all polls that has ever been conducted in the entire race by Emerson that shows Robson up by a point. Why do I think that there might be shenanigans here? I'm wondering, could it be the drop-off boxes? Could it be the fucking poll? Shifty, Alex Jones had a cameo in a scanner darkly. Lol. E. Lombard in Boston, counting the minutes until November. Thank you, Sticks. Yes, it will be good during the midterm show with Sleazy P. Martini. It's going to be an epic time had by all. So, yes, I endorse Kari Lake. For all of those of you in Arizona, you should definitely grab a ballot. Don't fucking hesitate. Don't get blackpilled and say, well, my vote doesn't matter. The Emerson poll shows Robson up. Clearly, she's going to win. That's an astroturf. In my opinion, when I look at all of the polling numbers here, and I see this one particular outlier at the 11th hour, I think that it's an attempt to astroturf velocity towards Robson. I wouldn't be surprised if there were a couple of other polls that come out today and possibly tomorrow pre-voting to try to justify that. It looks like a Maricopa County sort of shenanigans are going on at the moment, but that doesn't mean anything if Kari Lake is out ahead enough. If she really is ahead by double digits, there are going to be too many votes for any honking to occur. And so I encourage you to go and vote. The same is true in Michigan. What was it? Michigan 3, I think, and Washington State 4, if I remember correctly, or 14. I can't remember. There are 3 different impeachers that are actually on the ballot tomorrow as well. Tomorrow is going to be a huge day. Once those results start coming in, the subsequent day, there will definitely be a slot in the live stream where I analyze these things. You've got 3 people that voted to impeach Trump on the ballot. You have the Arizona gubernatorial race, which is what I'm talking about now. Again, Kari Lake has been endorsed by Trump. Her opponent, Robson, has been endorsed by Pence, which means it's basically the ultimate matchup. This is being seen as a bellwether for the entire country. I don't know how much honking is going to go on, although I guarantee there will be some honking in this election. If turnout is high, if enough people do turn out to vote for Kari Lake, she's got a near 9-point advantage in the aggregate. It is impossible for Robson to win. In fact, I would say it's technically impossible for her to win anyway. Even turnout differentials should not swing a race by nearly 9 points. What I do expect, though, is honking. I expect there to be some muling going on. We'll use that term loosely. I expect there to be shenanigans in that particular race. I don't think that it's going to change the end result. I think Kari Lake will still win, and I think that Pence will get egg on his face as the result of this. That being said, that requires people to actually go out and vote. If you are in Arizona, get your fucking ballot. I see so many people talking about irrelevant things. I don't get into e-drama with regards to Southern, Tim Pool, or anybody else. I make my own content. We are all clankers here. Clankdom is Switzerland as far as e-drama goes. We are completely neutral. Unless something involves me directly, I don't give a shit about it, generally speaking. Now, the next the next news story. This is from The Guardian, of course. Workers are being punished for inflation. The real culprit is corporate greed. This is by Robert Third Reich. You'll remember him as the dude that literally doesn't fucking know what he's fucking talking about. He has some very cold takes on Twitter on a regular basis. Big corporations are using inflation as cover to raise prices. Yet the U.S. Federal Reserve is raising interest rates, further hurting Americans. Yeah, they're raising them in response to the inflation. Joe Biden has astroturfed this is the reason why we're going to enter a stagflationary cycle and why we have entered a recession. Robert Reich will never admit to that. He pretends to be cerebral. Really, he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. On Wednesday, the Fed, America's central bank, which shouldn't exist at all, by the way, raised interest rates by 0.75 of a percentage point and signaled more rate increases to come, perhaps as soon as September. This followed a 0.25 point increase in March, another 0.5 point in May, and 0.75 of a point in June. It's interesting, by the way, Robert Reich never actually explains how Joe Biden has effectively laid the recession at the Fed's feet, even though all of these come after Q1. So, yeah, you slowed down the economy. How is the Fed responsible? It was slowing down before the Fed even took action. Well, not technically a recession, which is wrong. Economists in and out of the White House have spent much of the last several days deconstructing the word recession. There's no question that the U.S. economy is slowing. This, to put it mildly, makes no sense. And then he goes on to talk about Putin and all of these other things that Joe Biden has been blaming for his own economic malfeasance. Workers are being punished for inflation. The corporate greed is the problem. It's all the fault of the gas companies. It's all the fault of everyone except for Joe Biden and Robert Reich, you'll notice. Everyone else is culpable, not them. They've done nothing wrong. So Native, I know you keep your family private, but I'm just wondering what's your plan with the cats when you head back to the States? We love your cats. I'll keep that private. BB, GOP seems to hit polling troughs, holidays, and summer. We'll see what happens with that. The GOP has been reduced in the polling aggregates for the generic ballot and so forth, but they are still handily ahead, so we have to wait and see what happens. Maxwell Abbott, www.joekentisia.com sticks. Joe Kent is a former CIA lifelong Democrat and had a number of Bernie supporters exposed in his campaign. He also disavowed America First. Guy's a neocon. Total dross. All right, so there you have a non-endorsement for Joe Kent. Is he the one running against the other neocon? Because then you have a no-win situation. You might as well swap out the old one for the new one, though, so they won't have a seniority. Franchise 2020 on Twitch. I'm a new viewer. Are you coming back to the USA? Yes, I will be back to the USA. I can be on 2 continents, which I find exciting, by the way. Next story. Pay attention to the Dutch farmer protests because America is next. This is from the Federalist, I believe. The same climate policies that are set to destroy private agriculture in the Netherlands are eventually coming to America. I concur. The whole goal of the WEF, globalist, eat the bugs crowd, is not to simply destroy farming, especially small family farming, just in the Netherlands, Ireland, Canada, and Sri Lanka. They do want to take it elsewhere. You'll notice that the WEF glowingly praised the plan that was implemented by the Sri Lankans. They took it off, and I talked about it, I think, a couple of weeks ago. They took it off the WEF website the second that Sri Lanka's government collapsed. I wonder why that happened. Could it be that people would be convinced that it was a bad idea to go ahead with your shitty plans? Yes, indeed. The entire goal is to throttle the food supply, make food much more expensive, make it impossible for the average person to purchase the general materialistic sort of goods that they've generally purchased, especially with regards to food and anything processed, and then to give them welfare, to keep them more reliant on the government. The whole goal as well is to confiscate as much as of the family farms as possible. So instead of having a dozen farms of 20 or 30 acres apiece, you compact them, and then maybe Walmart buys that land. Maybe Bill Gates buys that land. Maybe GlaxoSmithKline buys that land. Some corporation that can be counted on because it's run by a billionaire who has their foot in the door of the government. Somebody who works with the plutocratic materialist class will be the one owning that land. The farming will still happen. They don't care if less fertilizer is used. If all of them decide to gobble up all of the small farms, which is being promoted deliberately by the globalists, and they gain all that farmland, and a half a dozen different groups effectively control the entire food supply, they can make shittier food. You won't get the apples of the size that you get. Your asparagus will be smaller. The canned goods will be more expensive. They want this. What they want is for you to be reliant upon them. I wouldn't be surprised if in the near future this is paired with an anti-family farming bill to try to keep people from growing heirloom crops on their own property. The idea will be, well, we know that these non-GMO kinds of seeds are more susceptible to disease. You're hazarding the whole nation's food supply. You're not allowed to grow them anymore. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if this actually happens. You watch, it probably will. You can look for the tech firms like eBay and Amazon to start banning seed sales on their site. That'll be the foreshock to that. Dr. Lick, sadly, more taketh from the trough than contribute. Yes, because people are pigs. No, Yanez, you had a really black-pilled dude in the chat yesterday. Low-key glowed too, in my opinion. You think lurk on here sticks? I guarantee that there's at least one federal agent that lurks on the material, because I have thousands and thousands of people watching live and hundreds of thousands watching every day on the content. Yes, I guarantee that someone is paid to keep at least a little bit of a tab on my work. They waste my own tax money to spy on me. Guaranteed. Theo Ack on Twitch, Bayer bought Monsanto. Yeah, these corporations they have no problem with compacting and buying one another until it's like a bookstore or something. I think Simon & Schultz or something is in a buy-up right now, and the U.S. government is trying to sue them, keep them from doing so. I don't know why they would want to do that, though. It'll be more controlled opposition publishing. Spike 11117S. If the feds go to block American farms, will we have another armed stand like we did with the Bundy Ranch in 2015 in multiple places? I hope so, because otherwise people will lose their liberty forever. Doesn't matter if you can speak freely if you don't have bread in your mouth. Mr. Twisted Frenzy, what exactly is the difference between the House and Senate, and what has you convinced MAGA is likely to take over the House but lose the Senate? I'm not convinced that they'll lose the Senate. I just don't think they'll take it by any considerable margin, certainly not beyond the neocons in the GOP. With the House, it is far different. All of the House seats are up. Not all of the Senate seats are up. That's number one. Number two, the role is different. The House is more close to a direct democracy. It was meant to be closer to the people. That's why the districting system exists. With senators, there's 2 per state. There's a lot less senators. They are less accountable to people. The role of the House was to represent people's interests in the district level more directly. For the Senate, it was to slow things down, to have more decorum, to have more rules, be more European style, actually, the Senate. Initially, the senators weren't even directly voted for. They were voted on by the members of the state houses. I think we should go back to that, by the way. Be one less distraction in political races. So yeah, they're predicting here on the Federalist that the United States will end up with farm protests. That would be quite formidable. It's exactly because of these protests working, by the way, that they want to compact that farmland. They're terrified of people with tractors because they're so efficient. You get 20 or 30 of those tractors on a road, they can slow it down pretty well now, can't they? Confessions of a Borderline. Get a chance to look up Operation Trust yet? No, I have not, actually. I've got literally a million things to do. Also did an appearance earlier. I'll be linking that out later. The next news story from Newsweek. It's an opinion piece by Matt Robison, podcast host and former congressional staffer, which literally means nothing. Everyone and their kid now has a podcast. I don't know why people even use the term anymore. It's like you're dating yourself to 2009 or something. Opinion. The Democrats are back in business. This is over the reconciliation bill from Joe Manchin. I would say it depends on what kind of Democrat you are. Now, if you supported the reconciliation process, it might help. The problem is that it's going to cause mass inflation. The good news for the Democrats is that Joe Manchin is a genius compared to most Democrats and decided to not vote for it or put it on the table until it was too late in the game for it to show up before midterms. I've analyzed this, by the way. Joe Manchin is effectively an evil genius that is occasionally a useful idiot. Noiles, is the Communist Control Act of 1954 still active? And if so, can it be enforced? I don't know that it is, actually. I know for immigration purposes, you have to literally check a little box saying that you've never had like communist tendencies, membership in a communist group or something like that. I don't know as far as it goes beyond immigration, if it has any teeth legally. Probably not by now. Superseded, I would assume. So yeah, the reconciliation process is giving the Democrats hope. I think that it's a false hope. Wednesday's thunderbolt from Senators Manchin and Schumer that there is, after all, a blockbuster budget deal on fighting inflation, cooling the climate, and making healthcare more affordable is a game changer. It brings to mind the slightly misquoted Mark Twain quip that the reports of my demise are greatly exaggerated. They didn't close their quote, by the way, which gives me OCD. This week, it became clear that reports of the Democrats' ineffectiveness have been exaggerated. 3 things have been given up for dead, are apparently very much alive. Good old-fashioned deal-making, the Democrats' reconciliation bill, and the Democrats hoped not to get slaughtered in the midterm elections. You're still going to get slaughtered in the House, just to be clear. There is no possibility that the Dems hold the House of Representatives. There aren't enough toss-up races, actually, for them not to lose it at least by a narrow margin. Even if they won literally every toss-up race, they would still lose the House by, I think, 7 votes or something like that. So that's effectively off the table. Battle Elf. How many days will it take in a famine before most Americans go cannibal? My guess is 7 days. I've got about 7 months worth of food in the pantry, so I won't start eating people too soon. Michael Greco, why does the left have an issue with guns, but they love extremely violent and gory films and very dark subject matter in general? Well, who doesn't? Shit, Black Moon is a pretty dark film. Brotherhood of the Wolf, Jesus. Silence of the Lambs, I consider that a happy movie. I love watching Evil Dead. One of the best things you can do, wait till a dark and stormy night comes, in summer preferably, lots of thunder, and eat really dry, extremely cheesy mac and cheese smothered in ketchup while watching Evil Dead. And just imagine that you're eating guts. I don't know. As a teenager, I thought this was funny. Ian Angel. Sticks, is there any folklore or occult works on sleepwalking? I'm convinced my girlfriend does. Fuck Joe Biden, clank. Just set up a recording. And tell her, hey, if you sleepwalk, and I'll catch it on video and prove you wrong. And no, I don't have any books on the subject. I don't know that any of them really treat on it much. I do have one that's awaiting illustration on dreams by Hereward Carrington, actually. I think it briefly mentions it, but it's mainly about like lucid dreaming and stuff like that. No, Yanez, apparently the pox is getting worse, causing chicken rot. I'm assuming that's what you mean. It's an emoji. Yeah, that would be bad. Oh, I think you mean cock rot. I think I'm misinterpreting what that emoji means in the context. Yeah, if someone's penis shrivels up and falls off because they decided to fuck 20 people in the ass, I don't have any sympathy. Orange Grove 55. Will you ever do video game, Minecraft, etc., and MRE videos again? Yes, I would love to do those. I need a better recording setup to do so, though. Especially with gaming. You have a baby in the house. You hear baby in the background. Also, Microsoft has ruined Minecraft, unfortunately. They've made it unplayable. Literally, I can't play it because I'm not going to make a Microsoft account. Chad Harris. Are you a red dot or iron sight shooter? It doesn't really matter. I'm more into revolvers than anything else, so take it to the bank. Next news story. This nation is scorching in a heat wave and wildfires, yet it's returning to planet baking coal by CNN. Western Macedonia in Greece. Dimitris Mitsaris opens his garage door and the smell of fermenting grapes emerges. As the first morning light bounces off dozens of steel tanks. Mitsaris and his family live here in Agios Pantaleimonos. I'm assuming I'm pronouncing that roughly correct. A mountainous village of just 800 residents in northern Greece, and have made their home into a small winery. I don't even have electricity here yet, Mitsaris says with a laugh. Yeah, he's drunk all day, so he doesn't need electricity too much. Internet, fuck that shit. Get me drunk, just wander around and attack the animals. He goes off and abuses the sheep, maybe. It's funny to Mitsaris because just until December last year, the 40-year-old had spent 17 years of his life working the coal mines in the state-run Public Power Corporation to keep the lights on in people's homes. He finally gave up coal for wine, understanding that fossil fuel was on its way out. You might want to tell the fucking goddamn Germans about this, by the way. Mitsaris, whose father also worked in coal mining, bought 44 acres of vineyard. Now he's wondering if he made the right choice. Coal here is refusing to quit. It's not going to quit. The Germans will buy it all. The fact is, the near future in Europe, I hate to tell you this, is coal-powered. Because you sat on nuclear, you didn't invest enough in that, and the green energy meme has begun to wither away. Yeah, Chinese solar panels and Chinese-fueled windmills, effectively, you get that aluminum from somewhere, it's not coming from Europe, are a meme, effectively. They're a good way long-term to potentially make a great benefit, a great return, but it takes a very, very long time to set all this up. In the meantime, you still need power if you want to have an economy, insofar as northern Greece has an economy to begin with. It's coal-powered. Hate to tell you this, dude, but your green grapes are gonna be red with the coal dust. Whoopsie daisy. My daddy was a coal miner. Then I was a coal miner. Then I decided to go to these 44 acres. I'm so poor. I'm so hard up. I've got 44 fucking acres of vineyard. Jesus Christ. Talk about NIMBYism. This coal power plant is within view of my vineyard. People won't buy my wine. You're killing more people with your wine than the coal factory is killing, by the way. Texman81, in retrospect, was Senator McCarthy on the right track with his 1950s investigation of communism in Hollywood and the education system? Partially, but then he overstretched, as people tend to do, and he went too far, and he started blaming people who had nothing to do with communism as being communists. Should have focused on the banking sector. Isaac Pryor sent $4.99. No comment, thank you. Testing 2741. What caliber wheel guns? All of them. I want a 357 revolver at some point. Emily Eaton. I found a tooth, maybe human, outside my house in my fountain. Kind of witchcraft? If it's a kid's tooth, probably little kid lost their tooth and they thought that if they put it in the fountain like a coin, then the tooth fairy would come and give them more money. Isaac Pryor, Sticks, given you're a Second Amendment absolutist, have you watched much Trex Arms, Garen Thumb, etc. on YouTube? Great content. I've watched Demolition Ranch and also Hickok, of course. I think that everyone has if they're pro-gun. Yeah, 357 is what I want to as a go-to for my revolver. I have a 22, well, two of them, technically. A Ruger and then the HR Sportsman, which my grandfather left to me when he died, which, by the way, is always going to be my favorite gun. It's literally perfect for plinking. Yeah, I'd like a 357. I want a shotgun, tactical pistol. I want to get an AR-15 just to piss off the libs. Probably won't even use it, but just to have one, that would be funny. Next, we have Nina Turner on Twitter. This is another funny one. She put up a poll about student loan debt. And here was her question. Should @POTUS cancel student loan debt? And here were the choices. No, people should suffer. Yes, 10K. Yes, 50K. And then cancel all of it. Yes, jazz hands. Guess which one won? No, people should suffer. With 68.6% of the vote and almost 40,000 votes cast. Clearly, people that she disagrees with for ideological purposes were sharing out this particular poll. I wonder if anyone else participated in sharing this out on other platforms. Wink, wink. This is funny as fuck. And I will say this as someone who owes was it a 28K or something like that in student loan debt. I do not want $10,000 of student loan debt relief. I don't want it all relieved. I don't want the government getting anywhere near my student loan debt. It keeps meddling in it by putting off the payments and saying, well, you don't have to pay. There's no interest. We're absorbing the interest, by the way, from those student loans on a monthly basis. The taxpayers are. Government can't do it on its own because it has no income. It can only take from one person and give it to another. I don't want any of it forgiven. I have tens of thousands of dollars of student loan debt. Let me take care of it. I signed the promissory note. I'm a big boy. I can handle myself. Yes, there are plenty of people out there that have problems. They don't make enough money to make their minimum payments. I feel nothing but sorrow for them. I was in that same boat for years. Lapsed on my student loans. I was getting calls about this shit and managed to scrape it together because I got my break and became a creator. But even if I didn't, nobody else should be required to pay that. Why should somebody else be required to take care of my problems if I've signed a promissory note and I got into it, knowing what I was getting into? Now, of course, there is one caveat. You take some 18-year-old who knows shit from Shinola, and that's most 18-year-olds, and you tell him, hey, we'll give you tens of thousands of dollars to go to college. Don't worry, you'll graduate, and then you'll be making $40K a year to a minimum to begin. And you lie to them, of course, more of them will take out the loan that they don't need. My solution to this, admit less people to college. Not every B student needs to be going to a top-level university. Some of these people can go to trade school or to a state college or something like that. They're perfectly acceptable. Community college, they're perfectly fine. For all of the basics, you can go to community college. It'll be 1/10 the cost. You shouldn't be encouraging literally everyone to take out tens of thousands in loans to go to a top-level university. For instance, if I could go back, if I could give myself one bit of advice that didn't involve, hey, don't even bother going to college and just fucking start in editing things on Amazon and making YouTube videos, it would be don't go to UVM, go to Castleton. I had no debt from that. Shit. The amount that I would have made in the what was it called? I can't remember. That's a financial aid program where you work. It was work study. That's what it's called. Would have been more than the amount that I owed, because I didn't live on campus and because the merit aid took care of all of it. I basically got a free year of college when I went to Castleton. At UVM, I racked up tens of thousands in debt, and I've paid off a significant proportion of that because I'm capable of doing so. Now they want to pay the rest off, but they're dipping into my pocket and taking some of that money and paying it off. Then they're dipping into your pocket. People that are less well off than me in many cases are going to be asked to pay for that in tax form. I don't want any part in it. Stay the fuck away from the student loans. I would rather the student loan debt bubble goddamn explode in our faces and cause another great recession than to ask other taxpayers to pay for my debt. I got into it. I'll get out of it. Just leave me alone. At the least, make it conditional so that people like me still have to pay it off ourselves. I'm capable of doing so. Howler Moon, did you hear of the crazy Marxist Matthew Crockford? No, I haven't. Josh, can you discuss Operation Mockingbird? I could in a future video. I'll make that a topic in the future. Andrus Sobel, hi Sticks. How did you get so smart? Was it college, or do you do a lot of research every day? I read quite a bit every single day because I edit books. And I have to be accurate in my analysis because that's a main source of income. So I analyze polls and shit constantly. Testing 2741. Sorry, Demo Ranch is cringe. New FPS Russia plus less info. No, Demolitia Ranch is not cringe. Barbara Neese, do you plan to establish a channel on the Bastion platform? Never heard of it. So probably not. Miami Cuz, a friend of mine said that things weren't better under Trump and the economy has always been the same since the 2000s. What's your take? Well, I can just go back to Rutland and I can see that it's definitely different from the 2000s. Before, you've got 1,000 people milling about in the shopping mall and everything's so crowded you can barely walk, and there's people milling about in the downtown. You don't have a bunch of murders. You don't have a fentanyl crisis, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, unfortunately, things are different, and most of that has happened in the last year and a half. Very sad. CC, hey Sticks, what are some of the websites you visit to read the news daily? I use Real Clear Politics. That's an important one. Sometimes I drag the bottom of the barrel and I go to the legacy media sites themselves, although I try not to because then they're getting a click. Certainly, I copy out the link to the news stories and archive it before I bother going through it. Another one is 4chan's Politically Incorrect, the best news aggregator in the world. Rider of the Metal Horse on Rumble. My mother has a garden that has been having a hard time due to unusually high heat this year. Should she water it more, or is there anything else she can do? She can shade it. You can use like bird screen over top of it. At this point in the year, it might be a little too late, but you can try that. And then we have Bob Dylan. Now, I'll give this a caveat before I begin. I am not a Bob Dylan fan. He sounds like Clint Eastwood at the end of Gran Torino, really, at this point. And he's always been a little bit on the croaky and horse side. I've never been a particular fan of Bob Dylan and his Beat Generation sort of cringe. That being said, judge dismisses lawsuit accusing Bob Dylan of sexually abusing a 12-year-old girl in the 1960s. Yes, indeed. Long ago, Bob Dylan, who was, God, probably barely 20 at the time, supposedly was sexually abusing a kid. There is literally no evidence of this of any kind. There's no photographs. There's no correspondence. There's no witness testimony. It's literally just somebody who wants money. And this is what Me Too has devolved into. And this is why Me Too needs to be buried in the rubbish pit of history. At first, it made sense. You have the Me Too movement with Weinstein and people like that. You have the casting couch abuse going on. Everyone knew it. Now, all you needed was people to step forward. And when you have 100+ people making claims against you, it does become kind of hard to see how all of those people are full of shit. When it's literally every young female you've ever interacted with is saying that you raped them, I would assume that maybe there's some corroboration in the fact that there are so many of them. With Bob Dylan, you have one person making a claim from 1965. And by the way, this was dropped with prejudice, which means there's not going to be any future case. This is an example of someone who is elderly and probably just wants that final payout so she can go to Vegas and snort coke off of Jamal's dick. And she figured, well, I met Bob Dylan back when I was a little kid, and, we were briefly alone. People believe me because of this hashtag Me Too shit, so I'm going to sue him for sexual abuse. And it's full of shit. I don't believe that Dylan did this any more, by the way, than I believe Marilyn Manson is guilty of the various misdemeanors that people are alleging against him. He's suing for defamation for a reason. It's not because he isn't full of himself and understands that he's not guilty. Weirdo? Yeah, you can say he's weird in bed. We've got people who defend him who claim that. Sexual abuser? No, I don't believe so. Bob Dylan was getting so much goddamn pussy back in the 1960s. I can't imagine in a million years that he's trying to abuse anyone. So, fucking his van was so full of groupies he couldn't even drive at that point. You really, I just don't believe it. It's not believable. And when you wait, what was it? So 1965, you waited 50 years, roughly, to file a case. Did you go to the police at any point? No. Do you have a photograph? No. Do you have did he leave you a letter afterwards, like, a goodbye kiss sort of thing? He's like, whoa, I had such a great time last night, little one. Yeah, I love your ass. Maybe I'll fuck it again in the future. You have literally nothing. You don't even have a Polaroid of Bob Dylan's cock, and you're expecting people to take it seriously. The fucking problem is that this has been happening over and over. You've destroyed people's careers. Look at Amber Heard versus Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp got Me Too'd, effectively. Oh my God, he was throwing shit. He's always on coke. He's completely nutso. He's abusive. And it turns out that's not the case. The only reason he was able to defend himself is because he wisely but paranoidly decided to try to record basically everything that went on in his house for several years. Bob Dylan, I bet, wishes that he had done the same thing. Battle Elf, what about allowing people to default on their student loans and declare bankruptcy like all other debts? I do approve of that concept. That is the one way out that should be offered to people, declaring bankruptcy. By the way, it was the case until, I think it was Obama that put the kibosh to that, actually. David Hunter, hi Sticks. For the New Hampshire move, consider Grafton. Still remote, but closer to resources, and it's the only town without any building or zoning codes. Well, that's nice. I was looking into Keene and Claremont, some places that are a little bit closer to the Vermont border. Actually, I think Grafton is. In fact, I believe, technically speaking, I was born in Grafton. I'm not 100% sure about that. I have to check my birth certificate. So yeah, Bob Dylan did not put his finger inside of a 12-year-old girl, as found duly by a judge. He'll probably continue to get harassed and Me Too'd by this elderly bitch, though. That's the way that it works. They don't relent, and they don't get in any trouble by not relenting. Bad Dragon Breath, red like an alpha. Hey, Sticks, thoughts on Andrew Tate? When are you having him on? How many push-ups have you done today? Supercars, Bugatti, cigars. Haven't done any exercise today other than walking, really. I'll be cooking a nice veggie soup later. Michael Greco sent $99.99. Thank you very much, by the way. I work in ER. Rooms are poorly stocked. Our techs socialize a lot. I lost it yesterday and told one of our female techs to start doing her job and stock some rooms, only I used a lot of profanity. It was unprofessional, but so is unprepared ER. Should I apologize? I don't want to. If she goes to HR or files any form of harassment complaint, you should probably talk to a lawyer. You should never apologize to buttfuck anybody who you have slighted in any way pertinent to your job, under any circumstances. Because when you apologize, you admit guilt. So don't do it. Do not apologize. She wants to be bitchy towards you, freeze her out completely. Tell her to contact a fucking lawyer. Never apologize when it's anything related to, if there's a power structure over you that has some degree of authority, hospital, you're in school, you're a student at school, never apologize. It may be recorded. Don't apologize. Don't even fucking talk to them. That's my legal advice. That's official legal advice that you'll get from literally any lawyer. Don't apologize. Trust me, dude. Not a good idea. Next story. Zenikin. Big shout out to whomever it was that turned in 62 3D printed guns for $150 each at a Houston gun buyback. And I believe that there was, where is it here? I'm doing my wow, this really took off thanks to the Reddit Gold and Funko Pops reply, but instead of shilling vibrators and shit no one needs, I'm going to ask you to call someone important to you and tell them you love them. You never know what may be left unsaid. Time is finite. Little bit. You're getting a little bit emotional on me, dude. I love the original post. Anyway, apparently, here's dope. The Telegram chat I got the post from said it was $150 a pistol and that there were 62 of them, so I made some assumptions. Thanks for the info, though. I appreciate it. Apparently, it was a little bit less than that, but somebody showed up at a gun buyback in Houston, and they had printed out a shit ton of non-working 3D printed pistols that cost roughly between $5 and $15 to make a piece. And I don't know, for some reason, I'm not seeing the exact amount here per printing, but they got considerably more than it cost to make them. So effectively, they made a bunch of non-functioning ghost guns, which weren't even fully completed. Basically, they just have some rivets in them and they look kind of like a firearm. Like they could potentially fire something if you modified them a little bit. And they made thousands of dollars in pure profit. I like this idea. Other people do this with basically wooden blocks and metal pipes. And they walk away with $50 for something that costs $5 to create in 10 minutes time with some duct tape and a few rubber bands, basically. This is how you defeat the anti-gunners. You troll them. I cannot legally encourage you to manufacture this kind of weapon because legality at state level may differ, but this is masterful. And of course, in Texas, I don't know of any state law that would actually ban you from creating these firearms. So you show up, you've created them legally, so there's no law against what you've done, but you're still getting a killing in money. Then when you get your $3,000-4,000 fucking dollars, you go and buy a real gun. I find this extremely funny. This is epic trolling, by the way. This is exactly how gun buybacks typically end. Somebody shows up with a dozen pipes attached to broomsticks or something. They attach it to a broom handle, and they say, hey, well, this is capable of chambering a shotgun round, and if I press this little button here, it might actually fire. Oh, it's a functional weapon. You're offering $200 for a functional weapon to be turned in. Hey, here you go. And other times they get trolled by people who will set up shop next to the gun buyback and say, no, don't sell it to them. You've got a working firearm, we'll buy it. And other than the troll pieces like the ghost gun bullshit like this, or the metal pipe with, a little fuse attached to it, other than that, the police end up not being able to buy anything. The other people will buy the guns from them. I think that's good commerce. It's capitalism in action. The Liberty Bowl. What's your thoughts on the importance of our trade alliance with Taiwan as opposed to Ukraine? Would Nancy going down trigger a chain of events? Nobody cares if Nancy Pelosi goes down. I'm sure she's gone down many times before over in China, by the way. No, let the Chinese do what they want. If that happens, I would just fucking laugh. I wouldn't be warmongering. I'd say, well, you eliminated a parasite. What's the difference between that picking off a tick and squishing it? David Hunter, Grafton is 45 miles to minutes to White River. Claremont has gone quite downhill. I work at Westminster Claremont for EMS. I liked Claremont. It's always been a little bit shabby, sort of like Rutland, old mill town. Keene looks nice. Outer Keene, anyway. I don't want to live in the city itself. I'm thinking about New Hampshire. It's a nice place. But yeah, I mean, if you got a 3D printer, apparently you can make thousands of dollars over the course of a week just by printing out guns that kind of sort of could potentially work in the future. And you look at the picture of these, some of them look more like guns than others. It looks like they did like 3 or 4 different designs. And some of them, they don't really resemble a firearm, but apparently they're counted as one under national law or something. So FYI, CCL equals no background check for gun purchase in most states. If you get a concealed, is that concealed carry? Or I don't know exactly what you're referring to with that one. Anyway, next news story. Would we rather due process come before the crime or after the mass shooting of school children? This is by Trey Gowdy of Fox News. Yes, indeed, everyone. It turns out that I was right once again. Yes, Fox News is still legacy media. I never get tired of being proven correct on this. I expect that a handful of salty Tucker Carlson fans will simp for the fucking network instead of realizing the fact that one person on the network is actually talented doesn't make the network less shitty. It's like, imagine that a dog shits. It's dog shit, correct? Now imagine that you take a petit four or, some other snack, a glazed orange, a candied lemon or something, and you stick it in the dog shit. Are you going to eat it? No, it's still a pile of dog shit. And if you pull something out of it, it's still covered in a pile of dog shit. That's the same way with Fox News. The fact that there are a couple of people on the network that occasionally make sense means absolutely nothing to me. They are a corporate network run by a multi-billionaire globalist stooge named Rupert Murdoch. They always have been. I still have a sticker on my window that's been there, I think, since 2008 or 9 or thereabouts in Rutland that says turn off Fox. And I ain't removing it. People that think that I've gone far right or some stupid horse shit like that, they can go look at my window. It's still there, along with the pro-parenthood, Planned Parenthood sticker, by the way. Yes, I am pro-choice as well. Would we rather due process come before the crime or after the mass shooting of school children? Well, it's not due process if it's not afforded to someone prior to them being penalized. That's the whole fucking point. But this is Trey Gowdy, so what do you expect from him? He's a neocon. He's a vagina head. He's sort of like Rick Scott. His mouth looks like a cunt. And Trey Gowdy's whole head somehow resembles one. He's got a weird, like a cone head sort of thing going on too. And he doesn't really understand hairstyles, I think. So not to get into the goofiness of style, or because, I know I'm not exactly on the cutting edge of it in many cases. I think that Trey Gowdy's got one up on me on looking cringe. It's sort of like he's trying to look like a Zoomer or something like that, but he's actually, what is he, 50-something, 60-something. In the aftermath of murdered school children in Texas, think of the children, Congress passed legislation designed in part to explore red flag laws. There was opposition, with critics saying the law violates due process, which begs the question, what does that term mean? It's black and white. It's right in the Constitution. A person is innocent until shown to be guilty. A person has the right to a speedy, fair public trial. They have a right to a jury of their peers. They have a right to cross-examine evidence. Are any of these things applicable to red flag laws? Essentially, you're saying a person may commit a crime. We have a reason to suspect that that will happen. So we're depriving them of a constitutional right until they can somehow prove a negative. They can prove that they're not going to commit a crime, which is effectively impossible. What if we were to say to a person, we think that you're going to make terroristic threats. We think that you're going to defame someone. So the government has ordered all of the social media companies that you use to ban your accounts. And you can come into the court anytime you want. You can prove that you're not going to defame someone in the future. Number one, is it legal? Clearly not. Number two, are your constitutional rights violated? Absolutely. Number three, can you actually prove that negative? No, you can't. It's reasonable suspicion though, right, Trey? You fucking moron. Deny-S. Speaking of anti-gunners, Beto appears to be making gains in Texas. No, he's not, according to polls. Got on one of his live streams the other day. Idiots believe he's become more moderate on the issue. It's disturbing. I think that he'll lose. Mark F. Hey, Sticks, Animator Man has a new channel. Can you please give it a shout out? The channel's name is Animator Man Official. It's slidden, baby. Yeah, I've subscribed to his channel. I had to look it up manually. He should get in touch with me through DM on Twitter or something if he's on there. If he wants a shout out, he's going to have to do that so that we can coordinate memes. Jason Griffith, if you're interested, try a creamy vegan white bean soup with kale and coconut milk. This one comes highly recommended by my brother, Spanish Gillespie. Spanish Gestapo? Yeah, okay. That sounds good and stereotypical. I'm just joking. One thing I want to make fairly soon is dal makhani, which is a very creamy, delicious, lentil-y Indian recipe. I've definitely gotten into Indian food lately. Miku Forex bot, Brian Stelterwood. Silver Kestrel, breaking. China has threatened to allow Pelosi to return safely. Those threats should not be tolerated. Sebastian Monroe, I'm late. Anyway, your beans are out for delivery. Thank you very much. When I'm back in Rutland, I will be eating baked beans made with Dr. Pepper. This is something that I have never heard of before. I can't wait to try them. Thank you, man. Catman FS. Military-industrial complex go brrr. Just put an ED-209 outside every unsecured target-rich environment. You have 5 seconds to comply. Justin McLackham, please speak to Senate Resolution 623. Russia is a terrorist state. I feel a war is coming very soon. Now, I don't think there will be a direct war with Russia because that's called suicide. Kyle Miller, late to the party, but why is Trump banned from Fox? Because the people at Fox are a bunch of billionaire-led neocon pussies. And that's always been the truth. And I'll never get tired of saying it, by the way. I keep getting proven right over and over by all of the people that I judge, and I tend to judge people hesitantly just to make sure that I'm accurate about it. There's a reason why the accuracy, by the way, is there. And there will still be people that simp for Tucker Carlson. Very, very sad. And then we have the last piece of news here. We have an update on Jack Cosciarella. This actually was a few days ago, and I didn't realize this post had been made. This is from the Dartmouth Democrats, actually. Now, this page is not verified. However, it does date to 8 years ago, and if you look back through it, appears to be a legitimate page for Dartmouth College, rather, which is where Jack Cosciarella did attend until recently. He transferred to Columbia. And again, I'll preface this by saying I still do not have any proof that Jack Cosciarella raped anyone, touched anyone inappropriately, or did anything wrong. So we'll get that out of the way first. I'm not going to dogpile the dude. I'm just reporting on this particular thing. And Misha Fitton had posted a picture. And one of the pictures there was Jack Cosciarella when he was at Dartmouth. And the other one was a different person. And what this appears confusingly to have forced them to do is to reiterate that the other one wasn't actually Cosciarella, and then they weighed in further. Hello, Misha Fitton. This is another student in the picture, not Jack Cosciarella. Jack was asked to leave the club in late October 2021 following campus-wide allegations of sexual assault. So, campus-wide, Jesus. That is the extent to which we will comment at the moment. It sounds like there may be some sort of civil case that has actually been filed here. Again, I'm not going to jump down his throat. There's no police report as far as I've seen that's been posted about. There's no legal case in the criminal sense as far as I have seen actually posted. The original story was literally just a bunch of people on Reddit. And that is literally worth nothing to me. It doesn't matter if 100 people on Reddit allege something about a content creator or a figure of any kind, even if it's someone that I fucking hate. It's Geraldo Rivera. And all of a sudden, 200 people show up on 4chan and Reddit to say that he stuck his mustache inside my vagina and asshole 20 years ago. Well, that's just your opinion, dude. It's just a claim. I don't even know that those accounts aren't bots that are created by the same person. So as far as that, there's nothing actionable here. But this appears to be a legit page for Dartmouth. And they're claiming that there were campus-wide allegations, apparently significant enough to the point where they're actually willing to comment at all. If they had any reservations about the situation, they just would have said, hey, that's not Jack Cosciarella. They would have left it at that. The fact that they threw this in is a little bit telling. It's a little bit troublesome. So I may have debated a rapist for all I know. Wouldn't that be hilarious? I destroyed a rapist in a debate about gun control. I would support gun control too, by the way, if I wanted to rape people, because I don't want them to fire at me. But again, I'm not alleging anything, Jack. I know probably Sue happy like every other liberal. I'm not going to jump down the dude's throat because I've seen the problems of screenshots that aren't real and of allegations that aren't real and of things that are claimed without archives and of dogpiling and flame wars and all this fucking horseshit. I've been on the internet for a very, very long time. I've seen it all effectively at this point. As far as I'm concerned, litigate it in a goddamn court. If the dude's guilty, fucking file a police report. Don't go through the college because the college, as long as there's enough money donated, they won't investigate shit these days in an Ivy League. Don't go through the college, go through the police. In fact, I don't think that colleges and churches should be able to conduct any form of investigation on their own. They shouldn't even be able to have their own security. They should be completely barred from such a things. Let's see. Testing 2741. To clarify, Sticks, 1 background check for a concealed license, then 0 for your gun buys. No FBI track for via background check on gun buys. Get one if that applies to New Hampshire. I didn't know that. In Vermont, I think that it's checked automatically. I don't care if they background check me. They're not going to find anything. Never been suspected of any crime, let alone litigated against, so. Brahm 39, Iranian border guards for clashing with Taliban the other day, reportedly at least 1 Taliban dead. They've clashed a few months ago as well. Be funny if the Iranians invaded the Afghans. Sebastian Monroe, I was out at EAA in Oshkosh last Saturday and saw a lot of planes. Watched an Osprey take off and land among other planes. Interested in pics and video. Yeah, you can post them if you want. Jesse JFR, how do you feel about boofing? Sincerely, Jesse JFR. I'm not sure what that is. Is that similar to boffing? In other words, to fuck? I'm not sure. I've never heard this slang term before. Why do I get a feeling it's either related to sex or drugs or rock and roll in some sense? Anyway, I think that I'm going to go off now. I've been going off anyway for more than an hour. There's lots of stuff to be done, including making a delicious soup. By the way, how many people? Yeah, almost 4,000 people at peak. That's pretty good. Pretty standard for these motherfucking live streams. Boofing is putting shit in the butt, says Matt Hugh. Or putting drugs up your ass. I had never done that. I have not done butt stuff. And to be clear, I was never so hard up to get high that I thought, hey, maybe this LSD tab will be absorbed more easily in my colon. I just put it under my tongue. I never sodomized myself with a mescaline cactus. I'm sure that there are some people out there that have. That one chick, what was her name? Neurosoup, back before she sold out after probably a plea deal and decided to just make shitty art videos. Back when she was doing the cool hippie chick thing back in the late 2000s. I remember there was one video where she was talking about being with several friends and they shoved DMT up their ass or something like that. And I always thought that was funny at the time. That was back when I was competitive on the psychotropic circuit. I almost became more well-known as a psychonaut than as a political analyst. Just so people are aware, there's definitely a convoluted past with regards to my content creation. I was getting high regularly, and not just on the weed, man. And yeah, thousands of people were watching that shit. I had tens of thousands of views on videos back when that meant something. It was quite the thrill, actually, at the time. Botany 101. Rest in pieces. That's about all. Peace out.